So hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening in the 5 continents. Today, we have a very good friend from Brazil, but who is working now in India. Hello, dear Fernanda.
Hello.
Hello, Fernanda.
Hi. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can't hear you very well. I don't know what's going on, but let's hope we can have a good connection, okay? As usual, let me share my screen. Okay, just a minute, please. Okay. Okay, goodbye to this. Just a minute, please. Okay. Okay, give me a few seconds. Hello, Roxy in Lima, Peru. Nice to see you again. So today is our 106th International English Online meeting, and today it's September the 10th. Okay, as usual, if anybody wants to contact me, this is my WhatsApp number. And if you want to watch our previous videos, you can find them in our YouTube channel. Who are our next guest speakers? Well, on September the 24th, Abu Kazum from Ivory Coast. October the 8th, Mark Dorr from the USA. October 22nd, Hasna Mansour from Morocco. November the 12th, Randall Davis from the USA. November 26th, Damaris Hatch from Cameroon. December the 10th, Marco Saavedra from Peru. And finally, December the 17th, we will have our 113th International English Online meeting, which is called Let's Celebrate Life, Love, and Friendship because of Christmas, okay? So who is our guest speaker today? Fernanda Binati from Brazil. Fernanda's interest in languages started at a very early age and became her lifelong pursuit. She has studied English, French, Spanish, Russian, and some indigenous languages like Karitiana. She also lived and worked in Australia, where she perceived the importance of cultural awareness. She has worked for various schools inside Brazil and internationally, mainly preparing learners for proficiency exams. She has the CELTA International House Advanced Methodologies and other certificates in the area of EFL. Currently, she teaches English and Portuguese in Brazil, but now in India, both as a teacher and a freelance translator, studies pedagogy at PUC Minas University, taking part in extensions and carrying out qualitative research projects in her course. She's particularly fond of what lies beyond language structure, meaning, and social dimensions. So this is our guest speaker today. Thank you very much, Fernanda, for your time on a Sunday, not morning in India, but Sunday evening, right?
Yes, it's 8 o'clock now, 8:05, and I'm really happy to be here too. I think we've been waiting for this moment, right?
Right.
And yes, thank you so much for having me here. Can we start?
Yes, of course. The screen is
Okay,
all yours, dear Fernanda.
all right. So, well, just a quick update. I'm not in Brazil anymore. I'm actually in a state in India called Punjab, and it's up north. And I'm here teaching. Um, should I allow people to enter the room, or are you doing that, Haim?
I'm doing that.
Okay, all right. Um, so I've been here now for almost 2 months, and I've been teaching college students. I'm here on an internship, but I'm taking a, a lot of responsibilities at the moment. This is one of the reasons why I haven't attended many of these meetings that we have been having here in the group. Um, but it's been giving me a lot of experience, and also about the topic that we are going to talk about today. So I decided to talk about this because I feel that nowadays we have been having a lot of information available to us. At the same time, we also have a lot of knowledge available to us. So information and knowledge. And sometimes I feel like there's a lack of awareness. Um, and so then I decided to research. I've been researching this in the past couple of months. It's been about 3 months since I have been reading extensively about this topic. And I'm really happy to be here today sharing all that I have gathered. So I think we can start. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen now. Are you able to see what I am sharing? Yeah. Okay. So first, well, we have been, as humans, we have been using reading as a way of expressing ourselves, of expressing our needs and our desires. So centuries ago, we didn't have this current system that we have today in writing, but we did have stones. So people at that time, they wanted to share their findings. So they decided to start making symbols on stones or on caves and so on. So this is just an example, just so I can remember what I had to say. So basically, reading happens because we have something to to um well, let's move forward actually. So how important is reading comprehension? Yes. So I have here a picture. My mom says she'll run with us when pigs fly. So they were, let's imagine the situation. Yes, there are two people, two friends running, and one of them says, my mom says she will run with us when pigs fly. So some of you might have understood this, others might not have, and that's all right. We all have some different levels of knowledge. So this should not be the main, the essential part when reading. Yes, because in reading, we need to have some kind of openness to receive what is being informed. So even if we don't know what it means when pigs fly, we can still try to understand it, right? We can still try to access that knowledge inside us to see if we can relate it to something or another. So in this situation, I'm going to explain when pigs fly is an expression which means never, okay, or it's impossible, things will, this will likely never happen. So the person, the little child is saying, my mom says she will run with us when pigs fly, which means she will never come, she will never run with us. Yes. So this is just a practical example. Now I've brought here some things just to introduce the topic, but then we'll share. Okay, I will ask you to interact. So it says Horace Mann says, resolve to resolve to edge in a little reading every day. If it is but a single sentence, if you gain 15 minutes a day, it will make itself felt at the end of the year. So I wonder how many of you actually spend a little bit of your time reading every day? Please post in the chat how many minutes or how many pages you read every day. Or you can just open your microphone.
Well, I guess because we are all teachers, we read every day, and sometimes we read because of pleasure, but sometimes
Yes.
because we have to, just like you were doing, right?
Exactly, exactly.
I don't
Any
know if
other?
anybody else wants to say something about about Fernanda's question. How much, how long do we read? Well, Nasir says 10 pages minimum.
Okay, it's a very personal question. You don't have to answer this, okay? But I'm just posing it to you so you can reflect it. I don't want to tell you how many pages you should read. This is very personal. So for today's time, I have added here, we have to read a little bit every day. Yes, but consciously. So it doesn't matter if you read a line or 10 pages. From my own experience, what I have learned is that we need to make that knowledge conscious and practical. So this is what I'm going to try to promote here today. So this is exactly what I'm saying. You definitely know how to read, yes, but the question is whether you know how to read skillfully and artfully. So here today, we're going to see many different aspects of reading and many obstacles in reading and how to overcome those. Because reading nowadays is a very, very common activity that we have in schools. Yes. However, how much do we know about reading? I'm not here to talk about the harmful effects of technology, or how we have become so like how we have become poor readers throughout time. It's not, I'm not here to say that, but what I would like to pinpoint today is how can we actually understand our reading process? Because we don't spend a lot of time doing that, right? We just simply read. But how does that happen? And what are we making when we read that is impeding us from reading? So, from my experience, I think that there are three main parts essential to reading. The first one is conscious effort. So you have to make the right effort. So you have some kind of intention. You want to learn something new. So this is enough. This is the trigger that will get you there. Now, if we are bored, if our students are bored and they have to read about something and they lack that conscious effort. Yes. So how can we make our lessons more engaging and more motivating so there is the right effort? That's a question. Yes. And then we can seek proper knowledge. So we are going to the right resources to find what we need. Yes. We are not just going anywhere online on, well, a very common example is Wikipedia. So we're not going on Wikipedia only. um, I think many of my students know how to use Wikipedia very well, but I always try to encourage them to seek other references so they are able to expand that knowledge. And also pausing. So extensive reading and intensive reading, they are two very important techniques in reading. I will not be talking about techniques of reading here. Um, but pausing is really important. So reading a little bit and then letting that soak in. So going for a walk, meditating, and so on. These things help us understand knowledge from a different kind of level. Okay, so if we are giving our students too much content, we might want to try to mix it with a little bit of movement or with a little bit of music or with a little bit of poetry. So we are changing the way we read. It's not only a text, we are changing the way, the means. So about 5 common obstacles. So just a question, please open your microphones. I would love to hear it. Do you face any obstacles when reading? Um, if you do, if you can think of one, please open your microphone or post in the chat.
I don't know about the other people, but because I'm 60 now, I fall asleep when I start reading. So I need to drink coffee and I need to drink Coca-Cola or something to keep me awake. because I don't know if it is because of my age or I'm working too much, but that's one of the biggest problems for me. I don't know about Raj, Roxy, Ivana, Nasir, Marta, Rita, Maria Elba, Juan Vargas, Esli, and everyone else who is here. Anybody else wants to share his or her opinion? Yeah, Nasir, go on.
Hi, thank you. I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you so much. My problem when I read is about I need to understand every word, but that take from me a lot of time. And I don't like to go far in my reading if I didn't understand deeply exactly what this text gives me the meaning exactly. I would like to understand very well, and that take from me time.
Okay, thank you very much, Nasir.
That's
Anybody
all.
else? Roxy, go on.
Thank you, Jaime. Good morning, everybody. I think that this is a very interesting question in the sense that there are a lot of factors that have to be considered. First of all, personally, I love reading, and this has been taught by my parents since I was very little. So I enjoy reading whatever I read because I have a pleasure for that. I don't always feel it that I have to. When I get the word I have to reread as a must, that's an obstacle. It's first the vision that we have when somebody is going to start reading. When I work with my students, whether they are kids, teenagers, or young adults or adults themselves, I always ask them in a part of getting to know is what they like to do about life, hobbies, things like that. And we start reading about that. So when you read about something that you really like or enjoy, you would like to enlarge your knowledge, then you have the pleasure of that. So the obstacles are put aside and they don't have them. But if we tell them that they have to read because they have, just per se, not because they have to enjoy it, there becomes an obstacle. And we need to know, and we, people who are working with learners and they made them to read, we need to be aware of that, I think. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you, Roxy. Anybody else?
I have written that resistance to reading. Is that what you mean? Like when you're not, is that what you meant by Roxanne?
Sorry, Fernanda, talking to
So
me?
yes. So I have written that resistance as one of the factors. Is that okay? Would you say
Yes,
that?
that's right. Because
Okay.
most people said no, it's boring or get tired very fast. Or now, well, reading it involves a lot because now we have ebooks, we read labels, we read science, we read a lot of things, not only a book, right? So it could be how we read, if we scan, if we skim, the purpose for reading, just a quote. To the important thing that I just have recently mentioned is that we have to give a time for assimilating the message and to understand the perception everybody has. It's important and it's acceptable. There is not only one way to accept the vision of a reading.
Thank you, dear Roxy. And finally, Nani from Indonesia, briefly, please.
Yeah, I agree with Roxanne. Pleasure is the first thing. If you want to start reading, you decide which book, what typical book you want to read. Yeah, I used to read one chapter every morning. It is just to refresh memory by reading. Yeah, it is helping for the age and also to make deeper understanding. I don't want to disturb with anything. Pleasure is important for me there. I really enjoy the moment I read. It is the point. So my mindset, I set up, I need to stick on this because I want to know further about this, something like that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, dear Nani. A chapter every morning. That's great. Go back to you, Fernanda.
All right. Anyone else would like to share? Thank you so much for sharing. So let's continue. I think that many people in the audience who have not said anything also face these problems. So yes, I have gathered some of these problems and we're going to see. So the first thing, lack of concentration. So since we have a lot of distractions coming from the external world and also internal distractions, mind chatter, preoccupations, worries, all of these things will consume our energy. So reading is about, well, we use a huge amount of energy to read. So sometimes we forget how to store that energy, how to save that energy. So if we want to read when we are tired, then we might have to reduce the amount of information we're going to read. And the same applies for students. If students are tired, they will also not be able to read as much. So all of these things, so someone said something in the chat. So reading activities should be meaningful, but also provide controlled and guided practice to support learners in their reading development. Exactly. So she wrote Elva Perez. Elva mentioned a keyword, development, and this also applies for us. That whatever stage that we find ourselves in, then we might have to adapt and choose a different style. So if we lack concentration to read a technical text, we might try watching a video instead. If we lack concentration to watch a video, then we might want to talk to someone about it. And all of these things are useful because so then we can save that energy, and then whenever we are never going to feel exhausted when reading, when we are able to weigh that energy. So another solution is to cultivate an active interest. Yeah, so little children, when they are interested, they are not thinking about how many pages they have to read, or these are all learned at school, right? But if you have a good, interesting story, little children will want to read that story. They will want to hear it until the end. So the same for us. We have to have an active interest. How much time do we have, Haim? Quite a lot, quite a bit. Yes, thank you. Just remind me of the time, okay? If I
Of course, I will. I will. Every 30
okay.
minutes.
Yeah, thank you. So, one thing that has worked for me is to go for walks. So since I read a lot, and I also read a lot of students' essays and things, I need to take a break, and I need to give myself that break. So sometimes I go for walks like 5 times to 6 times a day for half an hour. And it helps me to organize all that I'm taking in, so that I can do a better job. Yes. So another one is eye fixation. So have you ever read something and had your eyes as if they were not moving? Like
Yes.
you saw something and then it seemed like it wasn't working. So that's called eye fixation. And one remedy for that is to, like it was mentioned before, um, it's to divide the sentence into certain units. So I've got the reference of this book at the end of the presentation, so I'll share with you the reference. But it means here I put this on purpose, so you do not fixate on all of the words. The most important one is unity when we are reading a text. So if we forget that the text is a unity, then chances are we are going to start losing our concentration as well. So we have to divide the sentence, but we don't do this by thinking about dividing the sentence. This is just like a reminder for us, but we will not make, we will not try to divide it. Okay, so otherwise there will be only fixation as well. So we should read, but you will see it for yourself. I've got some examples at the end. We're going to practice. So number 3, regression. it's the habit of rereading the same passage over and over. So some people, well, actually, we all have thought about rereading for the sake of understanding better or maybe making sense of something, right? That we didn't know before. But regression will happen if we not move if we don't move forward. So we need to read the text as a whole. Remember, unity is really important. And then if we have some kind of difficulty, then we can go back. But we should never stop in the middle because that actually interrupts. This is ideally speaking, yes, ideally speaking, we should not have the habit of rereading over and over because we sometimes need sometimes we are not, it's not that we are not understanding the words, but that there is some kind of subtlety in the text that we are not being able to recognize it through our own knowledge. So let's say you have never read like William Shakespeare. Yes, you have never read William Shakespeare in your life. So when you get William Shakespeare, you have maybe the habit, you start developing the habit of rereading over and over again. But the thing is, you are getting familiar with the style, and this takes time. So we should never reread things just because we are not used to the genre or to the kind of author or time, because time will change. So we'll have texts from many different years. So let me see, what is this, right or wrong? Someone is asking if something is right or wrong. I'm sorry. Nancy, would you like to say anything?
Uh, sorry, my question is, if this a habit of rereading the same passage over and over again is right or wrong to do this when I read.
Where are you from, Nancy
So,
Ortiz?
Peru, Lima, Peru.
Thank you, Nancy.
So yeah, that I don't think I think there is a lot of research that needs to be done on this. We don't have a lot of research on reading, unfortunately. But according to what I have read, it's actually not recommended to practice regression because, as I told you, sometimes when we are reading something, it's not that we are not grasping the words, because we might know the words, but sometimes we need to get used to the style of the text. So of course, for example, take the example of William Shakespeare poetry. So William Shakespeare, he has his own kind of writing. So maybe, let's say, like, we're talking about English, yes? So a native English speaker who has never read William Shakespeare's poetry will need to read it a few times in breaks so they are able to grasp, and they can become more and more familiar with the kind of text. Yes. So if we interrupt that process, it's like we're impatient, because it's a process that should happen naturally. I don't know if I have answered your question. So it is not recommended by this researcher that I have read. I will share with you at the end of the presentation all the references, but it is not recommended of rereading over and over again, for various reasons. One of the reasons is what I have told you, okay, about the subtleties of the text that our brains and our minds are getting used to. Did I answer your question, Nancy, or please?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, yes.
Teacher.
Okay. So overall, regression can actually comprehending the text. So when we are reading something, we need to give ourselves time to understand. If we regress, that means we are we're not focusing on the unity on the whole. We need to focus on the whole before focusing on the fragments. We can look at the fragments when we are done, but not in the middle of the text. I think that's all. So remedy. So this is according to the book that I will share with you at the end. So he says, make your eye move over at least 2-3 words in one go and glide over the text in a rhythm. So you're not actually trying to stick to every word you read, but how can you do that? Well, you don't have to think doing that because reading is a natural, spontaneous process that we eventually develop. It's like listening. So we don't need to think about listening. We simply start listening. Reading is the same. So I put this picture just so we don't think too much about the movement, about doing this. So let's move on. Any questions? Let me see the chat. Could you give us the opportunity more these training programs of pedagogy, techniques, and skills to better teach my students? Yeah, nowadays many students in my country doesn't like, they don't like to learn English. Yeah. Leighton Marcelo from Brazil. Oh, hello. From Brazil, maybe? No, Bravo. Sorry, it's not Bravo. Okay. Reading. Hello. Where are you from?
Nice to meet you. I am from Ecuador.
Oh, hello. So reading aloud or turning your head from side to side. So reading aloud can be good practice, especially for kids. However, when we are talking about reading to understand a deep concept, research, sorry, there's just one more person. Oh, thank you. So sorry, I will not get distracted. So reading aloud is not a problem, but when we make this a habit, then yes, it can be a problem. And turning your head from side to side like this, or when you're following the text with a pen or with your finger, this can also be distracting. So ideally, our eyes should see and our mind should read the text before us. That's according to research, okay? Ideally, it's not that we should totally ban reading aloud because it is still good practice. But sometimes, for example, some mothers might tell the little child to read a book aloud while she's cooking. So the mother might want to hear the child reading, but sometimes it's actually helping the child not to develop the right skills of reading because the focus will be then on pronunciation and not on reading precisely. Yes, so we need to have two different kinds of ideas about reading aloud. So one is that to practice pronunciation, and the other is to read and we should read just to get the concept. But chances are when we read aloud, we'll be more focused on pronunciation. Okay, like right now, if I start reading my slides, I will not be able to focus on what I have to say if I am just reading it. So some students, when they are giving presentations, they're just reading aloud. And this is also part of the habit because they have been used to reading that way, or they have been used to just using their speech all the time. So they are not able to use the other process, the other thought process that comes from reading something. They're accessing that knowledge inside. Uh, so moving forward, indiscriminate use of dictionary. So this is another big problem. And we all start, I've just put some reminders over there. We all start with modest vocabulary. And in this, we need to understand this as well. Excuse me, because modest vocabulary is not something to be ashamed about. Okay, we all start with modest vocabulary at any age. So when we read, we actually have to remember that, yes, we are learning, we're still learning. So rushing to look for words we have never seen, leading to loss of spontaneity. So sometimes when we are reading and we see a word that is not familiar to us, we start rushing. You know, sometimes we ask learners to read aloud, and what happens is they start forgetting that they are reading something. And then if we ask them questions, they will not be able to answer the questions because they were not paying attention. And that makes us very weary, very tired. Yes. So when we use the dictionary in the wrong way, that can also lead to problems. So what this source that I have used mostly in this presentation says is that every time we read a word, we should scan the target word from different perspectives. So if we see a word that we are not aware of the meaning itself, we should first scan the target word from different perspectives. So we try to identify the pronunciation, the part of speech, whether it's a noun, whether it's a verb, whether it's an adjective, if it's singular or plural, the meanings and the usages. So in that context, what does that mean? Yes. So in that context, what does that word mean? Not by the definition itself, but by what it means, and the words which are similar to it or that might be dissimilar. And you first go through all the text and then you look up the words. So if learners are reading a text and they have to stop to ask for definitions all the time, we might want to tell them to finish the text. Then they try to, if even well, we then try to encourage them to scan the target word or the words that they don't know and infer the meaning. If they don't understand by themselves, then yes, we may tell them to look up in the dictionary. But I think we should never interrupt learners from finding out the meaning of words, because this is how we learn languages in general. We learn not by looking up in the dictionary. We learn by seeing it from different perspectives, from exposure. Yes. So we should not interrupt that process with regression or with indiscriminate use of dictionary. Yes. So moving forward, so how much have you read daily? So I think I have asked this question. So one of the purposes of this talk is to help us think and rethink about ourselves as readers. So as readers, which areas do we already have or lack according to research? So this is the book, the authors and the name of the book that I have been telling you about from these past slides. They are two great authors, and the book is called Communication Skills. So here they have put some points of efficient readers, and I think these points are really, really helpful. So an efficient reader. So then you start ticking for yourself the things you think you already are, yes, and then you share later. So always reads for ideas or information. okay? Reads group of words, multi-phrases. So you don't stick to one word only. You read groups of words. Quickly adjusts his or her speed of reading to the nature of the text. Sets the purpose of reading right in the beginning. So you know what you're reading, you know the genre, you know what you're going to see. Reads smoothly, visualizes ideas, has a good vocabulary in that subject, continuously keeps improving her pace of reading. So we should never be ashamed if our pace of reading is too slow or too fast. We just need to learn to feel comfortable in adjusting that. So learners sometimes, they are really scared because they think that they are reading too fast or too slow, but they need to remember that, well, we have to continuously uh, adjust. Like when we are reading poetry, we need to adjust that pace, and properly tries to sort out the material as critical, interesting, analytical. So we are not just reading, but we are actually analyzing it, or we are actually well, we can use this word, discriminating it. We're looking into it. Yes, looking into it. I think this is a little bit better. So this is also very personal, but if anyone would like to share about this, please do.
If anybody wants to say something about this question or what Fernanda has already presented, anyone, please? Or
Yes,
maybe
I will share the material later.
you
I
will
will
give us,
do.
okay, Guille de Romero, go on.
Hello, sorry, I cannot
I can't hear you well. It's bumping.
I have heard.
Still same.
Can you listen to me?
Yeah, but it's
No.
not, yeah, but it's not very clear. We do not understand.
Oh, sorry.
Same.
I think there
Okay,
is a problem with your mic. Can you type it in the chat? Then we'll read it for you.
okay, I will try.
Thank you, Guille de Romero. Anyone else, please? Roxy?
Yes, I would like to adapt using more probably visualized ideas. We know that most of us, we are visual people, right? And if we transform those words into pictures, it would be easier, right? And I would like to learn how to teach this to my kids. Then also having a good bank of vocabulary about the subject could help a lot in order not to interrupt the reading, right? So if I'm going to read something more specific, not in general reading, no novels, but something more technical, I will probably prepare myself for the reading while being involved with the vocabulary, and then don't interrupt, as you said, the progression of the process of the reading itself. Probably these two.
Yes, ideally speaking, we shouldn't, but sometimes, of course, we stop. And this is something I'm also working on myself, not to look up words, because sometimes the words, they are just too difficult to it. They're like once in a lifetime kind of word. So you never know when you're going to see that again. So then I ask myself, should I really look for this word? Because I will probably never see it again, you know? But
Yeah, sure.
then it, yeah, but then I think, when will I come back to this text? Will I ever come back to this text? Then if I do need to know the definition because it's an important concept, then yes, I will look up for the definition of the word. But if I will come back to the text some other time, and I do not need to immediately know the concept, then I will not look it up. Then I will let it go. Yes, and we also, yes, Nani.
As you mentioned, when we have a pause, how to continue after. Normally, I make notes on that book in a paper and then put in as a slide. So put inside. So when I continue, I don't need to check the book, just my notes. So it's really helped. What exactly the concept tell us, because I have to start by picking up phone, doorbell, or something else. I need to check that notes. Oh, this is the text meaning, makes very short summarize what you have got in your mind for your understanding. It is really important to put like that, that kind of words by your own understanding. What do you already got from your the text book that you believe you want to know something further, right? You're not gonna miss anything. So I put instead of highlight, I make notes. So easy to continue. So yeah, when I check, I just read that simple things, or then easy to continue. It's like I make a what do you call it? A cable to continue after. It's just plug into your brain again, something like that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yes, definitely notes is a good strategy. One thing that I have heard a lot of teachers um encouraging to their students is uh writing down, like having a vocabulary notebook. Uh, but I'm not quite sure about having a vocabulary notebook. If you're not going to actually see them again in texts, because I feel that we can only learn a new word when we are interested in the whole, in the unity. So just having a vocabulary notebook might not be sufficient to remember all the words that we are learning. So I think we should learn and teach our students how to keep a vocabulary notebook, not only writing down words that they see, but also about the meaning and why it is important to know those words and use those words, um, and so on. Nani, yes?
You just mentioned knowing the words, yeah, having the book. But instead of book for your using every day on your reading one chapter like I do every day, I have reminding book like pocket, so I can put in my pocket. So every
Oh.
time as a student, if you are in the car, if in the motorbike, it's impossible. If you're in the car, yeah, traffic jam all morning, right? Everybody in the rush. You can read one side, yeah. Just I
Yeah.
make it my own, not too big, just like your finger, yeah, and a bit long
Uh-huh.
like your finger, and a bit thick, 360 pages. What does it mean? One word, one page. The first page for your own language, so you know what does it mean exactly. And at the other side for English. That's I taught my students too, using the reminding vocab vocabulary pocket book. So it is the size, mini size for your pocket only. So easy for them
That's
to check. Yeah, really help. They said for not for young kids, but for like grade 7 up until advanced. They said it is really help Miss Nani. Actually, I got this from my professor when I studied in Australia. He taught me how to make that pocket reminding book. So one side your language, other side English. The way to pronounce and the meaning as well in English. Next time when you are in the car, after you already know one way, when you go to school in your language and put them the meaning by your own and check in English and put them in your sentence. It is important. It is important.
right.
Just mention like that. If you doubt, you make a note in that pocket memory book, reminding book. Make a note, just simple star or something. I miss with this one, or I mess up with this one. Just symbol, your own symbol. I put normally check, plus, or question mark and exclamation for symbol. There's a lot of meaning of this symbol for me. That's it. That really help for all my students. I've been teaching longer than 100,000 students. I escorted them to their future career. Most of them are successful until now.
Oh,
Thank you,
great.
dear Nani.
Amazing.
Just a
Yes, I
reminder,
think that
Fernanda.
works.
Sorry. Just a reminder,
Yes.
we still got 30 more minutes, okay?
Okay. All right. So
Yeah,
is that
Rosie, I
also
guess
part?
you want to say something quickly,
Yes,
briefly?
yes. Just to complement what Nani has said before, I think these kind of techniques are useful, and if they really work for the learner, go on, because I think there are a lot of different interests and a lot of different ways of learning. The important thing is to have the variety and to use the proper technique to the proper group or to the proper learner. And if it works, as she says, and is doing this kind of system or refreshing the vocabulary, what it has had learned before, great. I think the only one, they have to be a follow-up activity, probably writing sentences with those words, or writing a paragraph with those words, or making a summary from the reading or from the page they have read. So they will have a follow-up activity based on the vocabulary learned, not only to have it just a list per se, but for a specific purpose after that.
Yeah, that's for follow-up. Yeah. When they return home, they had the other side, something like that. Keep doing that. So 365 pages, 365 days means a year. If you study for 6 years, how many words have you mastered? That's it.
Thank you, Nani, and thank you, Roxy. Back to you, Fernanda. 28 minutes.
Yes. So I think that techniques, they are great. Like they both said, I agree with them that each learner has their own learning style and they should all learn how to learn. Yeah. So they are all learning and they should always stick to the strategy that they find best. One thing that um I'm not very fond of is cramming words. So I think that cramming is not a very good habit. If we're teaching our learners just to write words on notebooks because they should remember them, then there might be some kind of cramming going on. We don't want to have this huge amount of information if we are not using it properly. So what we could have many words. We could look up in the dictionary many words, right? But how we use them in certain contexts, that's the key to. So something else which I find really effective in this kind of table is the last bullet point, which says properly tries to sort out the material as critical, interesting, analytical, etc. So when we are reading, we shouldn't just be looking at the words. We should be actually developing our critical thinking skills. We should be thinking about whether this is something that we might use it in the future when we have a problem, when we have a situation that that we need to solve. So there is a purpose for reading. We are not just reading because we are accumulating knowledge. We are reading because we are actually, is like Paulo Freire says, the Brazilian teacher that I will show you in a moment. He says that we learn to become subjects and not, well, we need to become more and more humane in our interactions, more like humans. So if we cram words, then we need to balance it out with proper thinking. So that's what I meant. So now these are all the other side. This is the other side of the spectrum. And if an inefficient reader, so tries to read words, so it's not focusing on the unit, on the whole, reads word by word, again, reads the text from the beginning till the end. Number three, I'm not quite sure what is meant by reading the text from the beginning. Uh, Yeah, I can explain. Reading the text from beginning to the end is basically when you have already some knowledge of the topic and you are not able to select that knowledge. So you read everything and it slows you down. So when we're reading, we can also select, we can filter what is relevant. An efficient reader will know when to skip. Oh, this is something I don't need now, so I'll skip. So reads everything and deliberately goes slow while reading. Deliberately means voluntarily, yes, or in huge, limitless. Okay, limitless. That's what deliberately means. Reads the information again and again to figure out a clear understanding of the text. So, regression vocalizes or sub-vocalizes words while reading. So when we're reading, sometimes you go all the time, and we're never quiet. We're never reading silently. For this, I suggest we can start reading silently, and then we see how we feel. Learners will not stop being uh, uh, singing readers, if I may call them that. They will not stop being singing readers overnight. So we need to let them vocalize as much as they want in the class if they need. We need to allow them read aloud as much as they want. But eventually we should encourage them to read silently as well. Has limited vocabulary and rarely attempts speed reading and reads everything indiscriminately. So I think the last one is what we were talking about. So in my own perspective, I'm trying to work on the vocalization. Sometimes I read mainly since I'm here without family. I've made some friends already, but still sometimes I vocalize just to hear some voice, some to have some noise. But it's something I've been working on. And also I need to work on, I will never stop working on reading in this discriminately. So I think it's really important that we read with conscience. So uh, now reading as a means of making conscious choices. So I'm sharing with you a very popular and renowned um, teacher from Brazil. For those of you who have arrived a little bit later, I'm Fernanda. I'm from Brazil. And this is Paulo Freire, the man you see in the picture. And he has written many books about pedagogy, and he talks a little bit about reading. So I would invite you to read this with me. So let's It's not possible to read critically if one treats reading as if it were a similar operation to buying in bulk. What's the point of boasting of having read 20 books, 20 books? Really, reading involves a kind of relationship with the text, which offers itself to me and to which I give myself, and through the fundamental comprehension of which I undergo the process of becoming a subject. So we learn to become subjects and not machines. And another idea that we can do in the class, apart from all the ones that we have already mentioned, is reading poems. So I have brought here a very nice poem, and I would also encourage us to read together. So first, please read it on your own, and then we read it together, okay? So it's called Risk. And then the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. So in this poem, it's a short one, we have a good example of how to read without we need to learn, we need to read everything first in order to understand the whole, in order to understand each word as well. So this is one suggestion. This is something that is really helpful if learners are struggling, if they're facing problems with big words, like I call them big words, but if they're facing problems with difficult words, then you can use them, these kinds of poems, and then dissect and work it bit by bit. So this poem is talking about taking risks. So there is a time in our lives when we have a situation that we can either be in the comfort zone or we can change. So it's saying that the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. So we have to make sometimes the decision, even if it takes some of our uh anyway, our decisions and so on. So Oh Me, Oh Life. This is another one by Walt Whitman. So, oh me, oh life, of the questions of these recurring, of the endless strains of the faithless, of cities filled with the foolish, of myself forever reproaching myself, for those who more foolish than I, and who more faithless, of eyes that vainly crave the light, of the objects mean, of the struggle ever renewed, of the poor results of all, of the plodding and sordid crowds I see around me, of the empty and useless years of the rest, with the rest me intertwined. The question, oh me, so sad recurring, what good amid these, oh me, oh life. So I put this just to wrap up, because it's the topic of the presentation is reading in the age of information. So here we have a little poem of a poet asking himself, for who more foolish than I, and who more faithless? So of eyes that vainly crave the light, of the objects mean, of the struggle ever renewed. So he's talking about life itself, about the difficulties, of the poor results of all, of the plodding, ta-na-na. And then he says, the question, oh me, so sad, recurring, what good amid these, oh me, oh life. So he's saying that life, even though it's difficult, it's teaching him to live. Yes. So he's talking to life. Let's see. Thank you so much, Elva. Thank you. For children, they like to read. So Maria Elba is saying, it is very useful for children. They like to read when they see many pictures. This enriches their creativity and curiosity. Thank you so much. And yes, a lot of ideas in the chat. So this is all. Oh, sorry, something other. So some kind reminders to have in reading lessons. I think you might all know, or so have always a warm up before reading. I would suggest not to just give a text and say read. Talk a little bit about the topic, yes, and then you can have discussions about the text. Ask learners about their opinions, about their if they agree or if they disagree, and ask them to find evidence in the text, and also share their ideas with examples from the text. So there is some correlation. Bring complementary materials to add to the discussion. So if there is something else that you could add into that text, you could bring that, maybe some pictures as well, or games like it was shared. And teach about reading, just like we teach writing. So just like we teach emails, I would suggest that we also start teaching about the skill of reading. Thank you very much, William. And this is the end. So thank you all.
Thank you, dear Fernanda. Thank you for such a good and very illustrative and encouraging presentation. We have like 10 more minutes or maybe 15 more minutes to talk about this topic of reading. I don't know if you are aware, but South America, especially Peru, Roxy, correct me if I'm wrong, Peru is in the last position of reading comprehension. When they took exams to students, we are not that good at reading. When we have the chance of traveling to other countries, we see that people go to bookstores and they buy books. But here in Peru, we buy telephones, we buy USBs, we buy any electrical device, but it's not a priority for us to buy in books. So one of the big problems in our societies is that we don't like reading, and it's because, as you mentioned, it's a habit that we learn at home with our families, right? And then we develop at schools and in life. Okay, I would like to listen to Raj, because she's been very attentive to what every single word you were saying. So maybe our president has something to say. Please, Raj.
Well, thank you, Jaime. Thank you, Fernanda. I think I was listening very carefully, because I think just to be able to read without as you use the word cramming, sometimes we're cramming to pass an exam or to do something, to be able to understand. And as you were speaking, what I was listening for, listening is an important aspect as well. When you were speaking, I was listening to you, how you pronounced something, how you slowed down, how you included people in the conversation. All that comes from confidence, right? And so thank you. I appreciate you, and appreciate you sharing the references, the practicality. All of it was very useful. Thank you.
Yes, I told you, Fernanda, she was following you carefully, like baby steps. And thank you that you mentioned that. Yes, I was also listening to your pronunciations and your up and down intonations, and that's true. That's true. Thank you so much, dear Raj. Well, anybody else in the audience? We have like 35 people, Fernanda. Wow, that's good. 35 people, and many people listening and watching us in Facebook Live. Anybody else who wants to say something else or make a question? Yeah, go on, dear Nani in Indonesia.
Okay, thank you a lot, Fernanda. I already put in the chat. Yeah, you're sharing thoughtful ideas, reference, methods, really help. Yeah, I found just one thing, cramming the words. Most teachers here in Indonesia, they do that. So I will might share some to other groups that maybe we need to avoid any cramming words. Okay, thank you, Fernanda.
Thank you, dear Nani. What time is it in Indonesia now, Nani?
Now here 11:39.
11 p.m.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank
No,
you.
10 p.m.
10
10:39,
p.m.
almost 11. Yeah.
Anyway, tomorrow is time for work.
Yeah, but I start my job in my company as a director of study 1 until 8:30. So no
All right.
problem.
Thank you so much. Please, anybody else? Nasir, Layton, Nancy, Ivana, Juan Vargas, Mirela, Alejandra, Eslin, Marta Ogoño, Rita Norma, Elva Perez, teacher Vilma from Brazil, Flor, Elva, Elena, Jacqueline, Ever, Eugenia, Flor de Maria, Ibeth, Vilma Sanchez. My goodness, lots of people. I'm happy for you, dear Fernanda. Anybody else, please, wants to make a comment or a question? Yeah, Roxy.
Yes, sorry, meet again. Sorry for
Come on,
this.
don't worry, don't worry.
Thank you very much, Fernanda, for all your sharing. As Raj and Hami has mentioned before, and I think Nani too, is very helpful. So we have to be just the filters and to select and when to use them. quite very important, these ideas. Just I wanted to make a comment and to know about your opinion about this. It's about, because you mentioned something about reading aloud. I remember a lot being a little kid, even though it's a long, long time ago, learning by storytellers. And that was the passion. It was developed in me. Even my family, they created this kind of sensation and feeling like the book was a story more than some pages written only. And with the storytellers and the voices and the thing, they cultivate my passion for reading. What do you think about this process of doing storytelling in classes?
Yes, I think it's a great. I think that as human beings, we started learning how to live in the world by stories, and stories is always a great way of sparkling their interest and helping learners understand deeper concepts that we wouldn't be able to just explain in words, especially the little ones. So we can tell them parables, we can tell them stories.
Fairy tales.
But also, I think that there are different kinds of reading. So obviously, when we listen to a story, it definitely makes us curious about what is going to happen. So we want to listen until the end. And we want to probably get the book later, maybe to read it and maybe tell someone else. That's the power of stories. So we are always thinking about the other person, right? But also there are different kinds of reading. So I feel that technical reading, academic reading is a little bit different, and we need a different set of skills for that. But the thing is, this is why I would encourage all of you all to read and teach the learners how to read academically. So and how to really filter and the common problems. So eye fixation, sometimes learners, they think they're stuck because their eyes are fixated on just a word or just one thing. They don't see the text as a whole. They think they need to stop to understand every word. So I think that it's really, if we take the time to teach those strategies, learners will become more interested in reading as well. But definitely storytelling is a great thing. Yes.
Okay,
And I have a question, another question.
please,
Sorry,
please go on,
just
go
very
on.
brief. It's about the three stages while we teach reading: the pre-reading, the while reading, and the post-reading. What do you think about the pre-reading by explaining the most important and meaningful words in advance with the meanings in the context of the reading? What do you think about that?
Yes. Well, I would say from my experience, I don't like to say there is one thing we should do. So there are many learners who have impressed me by their willingness to learn, even when they didn't know the words. So I was teaching before for International House, Kazakhstan, and learners spoke Russian. And sometimes I made a little experiment. I wouldn't teach the preface, the vocabulary. I would actually tell them to read the text first and then tell each other what they meant, like what they thought the word meant. So I let them first read and
I
then
guess
guess. Yes. So we definitely need to grade the text. If we have basic learners, if we have elementary learners, then we should give them easier texts. But apart from that, I think that it's up to you whether you want to pre-teach or not pre-teach vocabulary, but there are different ways, because learners start to become more confident as they see they can start um, like solving the puzzle in the text. They know, oh, okay, and then they can share. So I like to allow them this opportunity.
Okay, Fernanda,
Okay,
three important things. Number one, Fernanda, could you please write down your email in the chat? So people who want to contact you and follow you and go to India, and visit you, they can contact you. One moment, Nancy Ortiz. Number two, Leighton Marcelo Zambrano wants to know when there is another presentation. So if you send me a Facebook request, this is my Facebook account, and here you can see everything. Like, for example, look, this is the video that is going on now. Okay, and I, well, that's my grandson, and I publish here everything that has to do with the ELT world, so you can follow and know when I am when we are having a next presentation. And by the way, the next presentation will be on September 24th with our new friend Abu Kasun from Ivory Coast, and he will be talking about the teacher as the protagonist of his or her students' success. Okay, now please, Nancy Ortiz.
Good morning. Well, here in Peru is good morning. Fernanda, thank you for your brilliant presentation. First, I have a question about I have a student who wants to improve skimming. I think that the key word here is skimming.
Yes.
What suggestion can you give me to help her?
Thank you.
So skimming, you can first start by, well, one idea that just came to mind. Which level is your learner, Nancy?
She's the secondary student in school.
Secondary. Okay. So one way of helping them with skimming is just getting labels of like, or book covers, or you can just put pictures, book covers, or labels of like brands, and then you ask the learner questions about little things in the text. So you give them a limited time to read, let's say 2 minutes or 1 minute to just skim. You can of course adjust that according to the length of the text, and then you ask the learner questions. So tell me how many, let's say if it's a label of a product, then you ask the learner the question. So how many milliliters is there in this shampoo box or something, or just very basic things first, and then you can progressively and gradually get to a higher level. So if you are if the learners is just beginning, then you could just put maybe a back cover of a book and then ask the learner, so tell me, what is the story about? What is it about? Just in very, you should expect not that many words. I guess they can read 200 pages in 3 minutes. I'm not sure. Yeah, if I have answered your question, Nancy, is that all or anything else?
Okay, I think it's okay because the girl is third year secondary school. So she has lots of exercises or homework, and even for me it's a bit difficult when I read. For example, in the FCE text, you know, the FCE level is the questions are very ambiguous.
Okay, so if it's about the FC, then we are talking about Cambridge exams. So this is more specific. So you should look for things that are from the UK, I would say, because the model of the exam is from Cambridge. So I would say just work with the materials that you have from Cambridge, and that will help. But at the same time, explore realia. So if you actually see your learner, bring examples, printed worksheets. You bring things that she can see. So she's not focused on the on the mechanicity of the exam, because that can be a problem. You don't want her to just think about the exam because she wants to pass the exam. Yes.
Okay, my dear Fernanda, and everyone else in Facebook Live and here, could you please switch on your camera so we have a beautiful photograph so Fernanda can have a good memory of this moment, right, Fernanda?
Yes.
Okay.
Jaime, can I just say one more thing?
Okay, you will, but let me, of
Okay.
course,
Oh,
you will finish with the, you will say the final words of your presentation today. Don't worry. You are the star today, Fernanda. So I'm just asking people to switch on their cameras. It's funny, right? We criticize our students when they don't want to switch on their cameras, and we are teachers, and now we don't want to switch on the cameras. It is funny. Well, let's wait. Nobody wants to show off.
maybe it's Sunday morning. Yes, Sunday morning.
Well, thank you, Johanna. Thank you, William. Thank you, Yvette. Thank you, Ramon from Mexico. Thank you so much. Thank you, William Rodriguez. Thank you. So let's take the photographs before they change their minds. 1, 2, and 3. Thank you so much. Okay, so time for you, dear Fernanda Binati. I knew when I met you online, I knew that you were that you are a real good professional, very devoted and passionate and knowledgeable and everything else. I really admire what you are doing, Fernanda, over there in India. And who knows? Maybe you will come to Peru or I'll go to India. So time for you, dear Fernanda, for your final words today in this presentation.
Yes, I would like to thank you as well. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. This is, it's such a huge achievement to education. So I think we should not give up despite all the differences and all the things that are happening. So thank you very much for being here and for listening and sharing your knowledge as well. I also learned a lot. So thank you.
So thank you, dear Fernanda. Thank you, Raj, Roxy, Nani, Johanna, William, Nancy, Layton, Nasir, Raymond in Mexico, Mercy, Elena, Ivana, Yvette, Eslin, Marta, Rita, Juan, teacher Vilma in Brazil, Alejandra, Mirella, Elva Perez, Flor, and everyone else in Facebook Live. Lots of congratulations in Facebook Live for you, Fernanda. Everyone loved the presentation. And it's time for me to cook. It's time for me to do the cooking, the washing up, the sweeping, the cleaning. I don't know about you, but it's my time. So see you in 2 Sundays. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Sweet dreams in India.
Yeah, Indonesia. Sweet
And
dreams.
Indonesia too. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Yeah.
Muito obrigado, Fernanda.
Obrigada.
Muchas gracias.
Obrigado.
Muchas gracias. Shukriya. Thank you.
Sasrikal, Fernanda.
Terima
Sasrikal.
kasih.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ramon, Suriname. Are you from Mexico, Ramon?
No, I'm from Suriname. I live in Mexico.
You are from Suriname and you live in Mexico.
Mexico.
What part of Mexico?
In Hidalgo. In Hidalgo.